And it's Ken Kraetzer for CBSI Services, talking business. We're at the C-Suite Network Conference in New York City today. And I had a chance to talk to a good friend, John Greco, who is on the Marketing Impact Council here. John, good to see you. What was the conference day like for you?
Great. Nice to see you. Thanks for taking the time. Conference was great. I mean, we're working very closely with Jeff Hazlett and the C-Suite Network. The Marketing Impact Council is an organization that I chair, and I founded about a year and a half ago. And the synergies here with this conference were great. You know, we spoke today. We had a breakout session that focused on what we call the Big M value equation. I've trademarked that. Big M is what I describe as marketing in its truest sense. Everything from strategy of the business to execution. And the value equation really is a mnemonic for vision, alignment, leadership, understanding, and execution. And that's what we believe in terms of the council, that you maximize value for your stakeholders by thinking about making the connection between vision, alignment, leadership, understanding, and execution. And that tied really well into the theme of the overall C-Suite conference today. So we're very, very excited about the entire event, and I think the turnout that was here as well.
Yeah, big crowd here in Lower Manhattan. Jeffrey Hazlett, great job organizing this for the C-Suite Network. Some great speakers. As heard Peter Katz perform to close the day. Tell us a little bit about the C-Suite Network. It's got a podcast division. It's got a video, television division. It's got events. Tell us about all the things that the organization does.
Sure. Well, I think Jeff would describe it as a platform because it really does bring people together throughout the C-Suite across multiple industries and has opportunities for members to come together around conferences like this, but also there are enormous opportunities for various topics to be covered through media coverage that Jeff and his team will host and pull together various pieces of content and broadcast that out through various channels. So it's a combination of making connections among people, you know, beyond networking. This isn't about networking for the sake of having just collecting contacts, but it's really creating good connections between people. And I think Jeff and his team try to do that throughout everything that they do. They have, besides the media capabilities that they have and the assets that they have and the conferences, they have a number of publications, but they've also got a series of councils, some that they have created and own, some that, like ours, where we own it. Greco Enterprises owns the Marketing Impact Council, and we partner with the C-Suite for the C-level execution. We also work with the budding C-Suite leaders of the future. Right, so we have membership starting from student level and working their way up. But at the C level, we certainly execute in conjunction with them. In addition, they have a council called the Hero Club. And the Hero Club, actually, we had a meeting here yesterday. I'm a member of the Hero Club, as my wife and business partner, Carol. Jeff bought that from Art Ryan, who basically sold his company, Accenture, to Lucent Technologies and Avaya years ago, or Bell Labs, the successor to the lab.
Yeah, we do some work with Avaya.
Yep. And they were, it was an incredible story about the creation of heroes by being CEOs who want to give back. They want to do the right thing, that they're not just CEOs and founders who are in it to make the next dollar. In the course of making that dollar, they also want to bring along their teams and give a lot back to the community and their team. So the founder of the Hero Club, in selling his business, basically wound up giving 10% of his business to all of his employees. And I think he made more millionaires in one day than have ever been made, perhaps with one exception subsequent to that, I think when Microsoft bought LinkedIn. But other than that, literally changed the life of so many people. So now the Hero Club was acquired by the C-Suite Network and has, I believe, 150 members or more. I think after this week it'll probably be closer to 200, and Jeff can give you the exact numbers on that. Tricia Ben is the general manager of the Hero Club and an executive vice president of C-Suite Network, and she is dedicated to running that and growing it and creating unique experiences for each of us who belong to that organization to help each other. So we have formed some great collaborations as a result of it. An example of that would be I am now on the advisory board of a company called Communications Match. I met Simon Locke, the CEO and founder of Communications Match, here at a Hero Club meeting 1 year ago this week. My wife actually bumped into him first and said, "You guys have to talk to each other." As we met and learned what we both did, we realized there would be a great partnership between Communications Match and the Marketing Impact Council, but also helping each other in terms of my role as an advisory board member to Communications Match. So I think there's a lot going on here in the C-Suite network, a lot of different segments of it, and opportunities for people to not only contribute to it, at the same time that they're taking something from it. So there's a lot of gives and a lot of asks. And as long as you're comfortable working in that environment where it's not a one-way street, it's very much a two-way, help each other kind of environment, that's what this is all about.
Okay, and John, tell us a little bit about the people who are participating. It seemed that you had quite a few entrepreneurs here today. You had business owners, and you had chief marketing officers from quite a number of publications and organizations here today. Tell us about the group that participates.
Well, it's a very diverse group. Diverse from, I think, every definition of diversity, right? Whether it's the countries of origin that people come from, their ethnicity, but also where they are on the continuum of growth, right? So we have, Fortune 100 companies in the mix, and we have startups in the mix, and everything in between. And that's what really makes it interesting, because you take that mix of people and then add to it a significant investor component, right? So a number of investors are in the room and are members. There's actually another council which is led by the Angels Investors Network. And that's an organization that's really seeing some people who have been very successful in their careers, either with their own companies or in leadership positions of very large companies, now having angel investors' ability to give something back and invest in other companies and guidance to those companies as well. So you've got the interplay here of people in all walks of life, all industries, at every stage of development. And so one moment I may be talking to the CMO or CEO of a very large company or a nonprofit organization. I think we had the CEO of the Make-A-Wish Foundation here today.
Yeah, we had a chat with him today.
He's just a phenomenal individual. And then at the same token, you've got someone who perhaps just started a new software company or a new service company or has a new idea. And they're trying to get that funded. And as I said, everything in between. So there's a tremendous amount of give and take and people helping each other, everybody learning from each other, right? Because no matter where you are in your career stage or business size, big companies can learn from new, nimble startups, and the new, nimble startups can learn from the both successes and mistakes that some of the larger companies have made throughout their learning curve. And if you come at this from the perspective of life is about continuous learning, both personally and organizationally, and you can learn something from every interaction, every session, every individual, no matter what they're talking about, there's a jewel there somewhere if you listen and pay attention and connect all the dots.
Very good. And John Greco, why don't you take us through highlights of your career? We met each other when you were the CEO of the Direct Marketing Association, which I had so many great experiences with. Take us through some of the steps and highlights of your career.
Sure. Well, I started out as an electronic engineer. And I figured out while I was still going to engineering school that I didn't want to practice as an engineer because I liked the business and the communications and the people side of things more than my calculator or slide rule or whatever device was being used at the time. But I did start out and I said, all right, I'm going to try it. Spent 3 years at RCA on the Trident missile program, of all things. I'm happy to report that I hear the Trident missile is still flying, so we didn't mess that up too badly, even though I didn't want to do that. I was recruited by AT&T at that 3-year point, And that was a huge step for me because I was brought into their leadership continuity program where we were really being groomed to be the next CEO of the company. Whether we got there or not, the idea was they wanted a large stable of people who could continue to take on different leadership positions. So they sent me back for my MBA at Columbia, never turned back from the business side of things. Led the market management organization there in both business and consumer marketing, led the national accounts organization there on the sales side, and then spent the last 5 years that I spent at AT&T running the consumer laboratory at AT&T Bell Laboratories, which was at the time the preeminent market research facility in the world. And we had a wonderful team. I called it the Noah's Ark of Bell Laboratories, right? Because I had everything from the computer scientists creating simulations of new products and services to the market researchers, behavioral psychologists, cultural anthropologists. We even had an astrophysicist working for us because they were able to model very large-scale data sets. So therefore, dealing with the consumer database of 300 million individuals was nothing to them at the time. When AT&T and Lucent split, 1996, I realized that that was a good transition point for me, that maybe the rest of my life at AT&T did not make sense, that I think they had reached their high at that point, at least in terms of my intersection with them at that stage of the development. And I was recruited by a company called R. Donnelley. Happens to be one of the, at the time, $5 billion commercial printer. Again, a company in transition, and help them as part of the leadership team in the financial services business unit. And we helped make the transition from being a printer to being a content manager who also happened to print sometimes, as well as other channels. Then I was recruited into the trade association world. So first to the Yellow Pages Publishers Association, as it was called at the time. We've morphed that into the local search association, and again moved from print to online and all media in terms of the local search capability. And from there was recruited to run the Direct Marketing Association as CEO. As a matter of fact, there was a year in between where I actually launched, I was consulting with the Yellow Pages group while launching Greco Associates, which is the consulting and advisory firm that really has been around since 2003. And my wife ran that while I went off and ran the DMA for 6 years. And then I rejoined her back in 2010 when I stepped down from my position at DMA. And we've been growing Greco Associates as an advisory group, doing a lot of work consulting and M&A activity, and as well as general strategy in both the for-profit and nonprofit segments, so kind of across the board in a lot of different industries. Doing a lot recently in healthcare because of the consumerization and the retailization of healthcare. We work with a great company called MD Live, which is a big telehealth company. And then a year and a half ago, decided to launch the Marketing Impact Council as kind of the culmination of everything I ever learned about everything, right? Because we're really talking about the council being where we figure out if you had one more dollar to invest, how would you invest it to make the maximum impact on your brand? And bringing it back to where we started the conversation, that's by focusing on that value equation, right? And making sure you've got continuously got that alignment of your vision with the alignment of your strategy, your structure, your information systems, your people, your processes, having the right leadership in place, making sure every stakeholder understands their role in executing your value proposition, whether it's your employee, your client, your shareholders, and then executing flawlessly. Learning from that process, going right back to the beginning and every day and saying, how do I continuously improve on that? So we're having a lot of fun with the council. Membership is growing. Encourage both companies and individuals to join. We've got a place at the table for everyone that's interested in participating in this.
Okay, and John, final thought as we wrap up 2019. What any key trends that you saw during the year or milestones that really stood out when you look back over the past year?
I think that's a great question, Ken. I think I would pick three areas that I think are not only trends over the last year, but will be drivers going forward, right? And that's the dramatic influence that artificial intelligence is having. And I actually call these areas the three big little Y's, kind of like the television show. because the three areas of artificial intelligence, market research, and communications are the areas that I'm seeing a trend in, and there are misinterpretations about them. Those are three critical areas and capabilities that are morphing, right? So artificial intelligence is truly being applied everywhere. Basic machine learning has morphed over the years. However, people are starting to understand and learn that without the right amount of data, you're not going to see patterns in something, right? So companies, businesses have figured out more often this past year than they did in prior years, I think, that AI is still in its infancy stages in terms of where it is on the overall learning curve, that it's one thing for any company to be able to use it to have a chatbot, let's say, to have a conversation, right, with their stakeholders from a customer service perspective. But if you want to get insights from data, you better have enough data. So that the trend of trying to aggregate enough data around the topic that you're interested in so that you can actually see patterns in it. Market research is morphing, right, from a survey-based model, right, where every company felt like if they weren't using either SurveyMonkey or something similar to it, they were making a mistake. And I think people are realizing now that that survey approach still has its place, very appropriate place. But there's so much information and research that's available out there from people's behavior. I've always said that behavior is the best predictor of behavior when you're doing research. That
Sure.
when you look at what people are posting in social media, what they're commenting on, listening to that, paying attention to that. Social listening has taken a giant step forward in this past year, and I think will continue to do so going forward. And then the area of communications is something I feel very strongly about, because I hope people are starting to see, and I think it's something we've seen in 2019, where because the ability to use so many channels is in everybody's hands, many organizations are misusing it and overusing it to create clutter for themselves, right? So the channel problem in the past has always been, I want to break through the clutter that's out there in the marketplace with my message. And we've seen over and over again so many entities, large companies, small companies, overdoing it in terms of a non-coordinated, non-strategic approach to the mixture of channels, just throwing everything but the kitchen sink at someone, over-surveying them, every interaction. Think about, you go to a healthcare provider now, and every time you touch any part of the process, you're getting a survey being asked, how did I do, how did I do, how did I do? To the point where if they have something really important to communicate to, they can't break through their own clutter, let alone the marketplace's clutter. So I think that's a trend that's a negative trend. Too many people not working strategically with their communications, having a good communications plan of how to use all those channels, and do what we say in the council, be channel agnostic, technology neutral, and be data driven. Be data driven about which channel to use when, to be relevant, to break through the clutter of the marketplace, but also to not create clutter of your own.
Okay, John Greco from the Marketing Impact Council here at the C-Suite Network, and operating his own organization. And just remember working with you at the Direct Marketing Association. That was really something I really enjoyed. John, good to see you. Happy holidays, and we'll catch up again very soon.
Thanks very much. I look forward to it. Thank you. Thanks very much.
It's Ken Kraetzer for CBSI Services, talking business at the C-Suite Network Conference in New York City.